Rain poured down like shattered glass, drumming against the glass ceiling of the long corridor that led through the white riverside mansion. Serena Hale's hands trembled as she zipped up a worn leather suitcase. She stuffed in whatever she could reach, a dark sweater, a pair of jeans, a bottle of pills, her passport over a pile of wrinkled papers. The faint bruises along her wrists peeked through the layer of foundation she'd smeared on hours earlier. The sight made her freeze for a heartbeat, a wave of memory slamming into her. Adrian's calm, chilling voice whispering, "As long as you don't argue, everything will be fine." A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Serena held her breath. This house had never belonged to her. It was a stage, and she was the silent ornament, the obedient wife meant to smile on cue. She pressed her ear to the door, counting the seconds between each footstep. Adrian was home early. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She couldn't let him find her like this. Suitcase open, shoes ready. He'd smile, close the door, and the storm outside would be nothing compared to what he'd do to her. Serena yanked the zipper closed and shoved the suitcase under her arm. The window was open just a crack. Cold wind and rain lashed at the curtains. She climbed onto the sill, her fingers slipping against the wet frame. For a second, she hesitated. The black garden below, the sharp smell of rain, the taste of fear. Then she jumped. Her knees hit the mud hard. Pain shot up her legs, but she didn't stop. Barefoot, soaked, she ran through the garden, past the fountain where he once kissed her for the cameras, past the marble statues that had witnessed too many lies. The iron gates loomed ahead, locked, as always. But the side passage was open, left unguarded while the security team waited for the storm to pass. She slipped through, heart pounding, and stumbled onto the empty street. For the first time in years, no one was watching her. She flagged down a taxi, her voice shaking as she spoke to the driver. "Anywhere downtown," she said. "Just drive." The city swallowed her lights, smeared into rivers of gold against the rain-soaked windows. She clutched the edge of her seat, trying not to cry. The driver asked no questions. The radio hummed softly, a love song that felt like it belonged to someone else's life. By the time the car stopped, she didn't even know where she was. A hotel glowed ahead, glass and steel, the kind of place Adrian would never expect her to hide. She paid in cash, giving the clerk a false name that she barely remembered. Her hands still shook as she signed the register. Emily Hale. The elevator mirrored her reflection, pale skin, wet hair clinging to her cheeks, eyes wide with exhaustion and fear. "You're free now," she whispered to herself. "You're free." But freedom felt nothing like she imagined. It was sharp, cold, and terrifying. When she reached the 5th floor, her mind was foggy, her body numb. She found the door that matched the number on the keycard, 509, and slid it open. The room was dark, quiet. She didn't bother turning on the lights. She just wanted to breathe. She locked the door, dropped her suitcase, and sank against the wall. The faint smell of whiskey hung in the air. A low voice broke the silence, calm, deep, and unmistakably male. "You're in the wrong room." Serena's blood turned to ice. She looked up. In the dim light of the city spilling through the curtains, a figure sat in the armchair, tall, broad-shouldered, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. His eyes caught the light just enough for her to see that they were cold, dark, and far too focused on her. And just like that, the night she thought would save her had only begun. For a few seconds, Serena couldn't move. Her breath caught in her throat, her soaked hair dripping rainwater onto the carpet. The man didn't stand. He didn't shout. He just watched her utterly still, like a wolf deciding whether the trembling thing before him was prey or a problem. I'm sorry," she stammered, her voice hoarse. "They must have given me the wrong keycard." He finished, his tone low, controlled. "Room 509 is never given to anyone." The weight of those words settled between them like smoke. Serena's pulse thundered. She took a small step back, her hand fumbling for the door handle. It didn't budge. She turned again, the lock light glowed red. She dropped her keycard somewhere inside. The man finally set his glass down. The faint clink of crystal against wood made her flinch. He rose from the armchair. Even in the low light, Serena could see the precision in the way he moved. Calm, deliberate, and dangerous. The tailored black shirt clung to his frame, the sleeves rolled up, revealing veins and the faint shadow of tattoos along his forearm. I didn't mean to intrude, she managed, forcing herself to meet his gaze. It's a mistake. I'll just… Stop. No. The word was quiet, but it pinned her in place more effectively than a shout ever could. He walked closer, each step slow, unhurried. When he reached her, he stopped just a few inches away. The air between them was thick with whiskey, rain, and something else, something sharp and electric. Who sent you? He asked softly. Her heart dropped. What? Women don't wander into my room by accident. His eyes scanned her face, her wet hair, her trembling hands, the suitcase by her feet. Not unless someone wants to make a point. I don't even know who you are, Serena said, panic creeping into her tone. Please, I just needed a room for the night. My husband… She stopped herself. Too late. His expression changed. Just slightly interest flickered through the coldness. Your husband? Serena swallowed hard, realizing what she'd given away. He's looking for me, she whispered. I needed to hide, that's all. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, the man chuckled low, rough, humorless. You ran, he said. Smart girl. She blinked at him, confused. You're not going to call security? No. He turned his back to her, returning to the table where a half-empty decanter Saturday, because security works for me. Her stomach twisted. I don't understand. You don't need to. He poured another glass of whiskey, then looked over his shoulder. What's your name? Sir Emily, she lied quickly, remembering the name she'd used downstairs. He smirked as if he could taste the lie. Emily, then. He motioned toward the chair across from his. Sit. I'd rather stand, she said quietly. That wasn't a suggestion. The authority in his voice made something cold crawl down her spine. She sat, folding her hands tightly in her lap, trying to steady her breathing. For a long while, neither spoke. He studied her the way a chess master studies the board, calm, calculating, unblinking. Then he leaned back, voice soft but deliberate. You don't need to be afraid, Emily. If I wanted to hurt you, I already would have. That didn't make her feel any safer. I'll make a call, he continued. You'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow morning, my driver will take you somewhere safer. Safer? Serena echoed. You don't even know me. I don't have to. He lifted the glass to his lips. But the kind of man who drives his wife into the rain at midnight. I know his type. His eyes darkened, as if remembering something. Serena didn't know whether to thank him or run. Every instinct screamed danger, but for the first time in months, no one was yelling at her, no one was breaking things. Only the rain outside and the steady, unnerving sound of his voice. What should I call you? She asked quietly. He looked at her over the rim of his glass. Dante. Things is watching. The name landed heavy in the air, sharp, powerful, final. She didn't know it yet, but it was a name whispered in fear across the city. A name that meant control, power, and blood. And as Serena sat in silence, drenched and trembling in the wrong hotel room, she realized that she had escaped one monster, only to find another. Serena didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of the armchair across from him, her damp hair clinging to her neck, the hotel robe hanging loosely over her shoulders. Every time she closed her eyes, she could still see his face in the half-light sharp angles. Unreadable eyes, the calm of a man who had seen everything and forgotten how to be surprised. Dante Moretti had barely moved. He'd made a single phone call in Italian, voice low and precise, before pouring himself another glass of whiskey. When he finally looked at her again, it wasn't with suspicion anymore. It was curiosity, slow, deliberate, unsettling. Your husband, he said at last. Does he know you're here? Serena's fingers tightened around the cup of tea she hadn't touched. No, and I'd rather he never does. What's his name? She hesitated. Adrian Cross. Something flickered in his eyes, recognition, maybe, or calculation. Then it was gone. I see. You know him? She asked. Dante's smile was small and humorless. I know of him. He does business with men who should be more careful about who they cross. The word cross lingered in the air, tasting like a warning. Serena shifted uneasily. I don't want trouble, she whispered. I just need time to figure things out. You're already in trouble, Dante replied, his tone almost kind. You walked into it the moment you stepped into this room. He set his glass down and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. The light from the city window painted faint silver lines in his dark hair. But don't worry, you're under my roof now. That's supposed to make me feel safe? She asked. He studied her for a long moment. No, it's supposed to make you aware. Serena's heart kicked hard against her ribs. He wasn't threatening her, he was stating a fact, the way a storm might announce itself before it hit. She wanted to ask him what kind of man he really was, but she already knew. The way he spoke, the way he controlled every inch of space around him told her enough. He wasn't just powerful, he was dangerous in a way that didn't need violence to prove itself. Why are you helping me? She asked quietly. For the first time, he looked almost thoughtful. Because you're terrified, he said, and terrified people are honest. They show you who they are. I'm not, she began, then stopped herself. She was. Every nerve in her body screamed it. And yet, under the fear, there was something else, an odd steadiness, a pull she couldn't name. The silence between them was charged, too heavy for words. Dante stood, crossing the room to the window. The rain had stopped, leaving the city below shimmering under the streetlights. You can take the bedroom, he said. The bed's clean. I have work to finish. Serena blinked. You're serious? He glanced at her over his shoulder. You're shaking. Sleep before you collapse. I can't, she started. But he cut her off with a small, amused sound. I'm not in the habit of forcing terrified women into my bed, Karamia. Take it before I change my mind. His use of the Italian endearment, my dear, made her cheeks burn. She nodded quickly and slipped into the adjoining room. The suite was minimal, elegant, and cold. She changed into a dry shirt from her suitcase and sank onto the massive bed. The sheets smelled faintly of cedar and smoke. Through the crack in the door, she could see him sitting back down at the table, pen in hand, writing something in a leather notebook. His presence filled the space like a shadow she couldn't escape, yet oddly didn't want to. When exhaustion finally dragged her under, her last thought was of Adrian's face twisting in anger the moment he realized she was gone, and of Dante's steady voice cutting through the storm like a blade. Serena woke to silence. Morning light filtered through the curtains, soft and gray. For one brief, blissful second, she didn't remember where she was. Then she saw the half-empty glass of whiskey on the table and froze. The chair where Dante had been sitting was empty, but the air still carried the weight of him. Her pulse quickened. Maybe he'd left. Maybe she could just walk out, disappear again before he changed his mind. She grabbed her suitcase and crept toward the door. But when she opened it, she stopped dead. Two men in black suits stood in the hallway, massive, stone-faced, blocking the exit. One of them held a small envelope. For you, he said in a thick accent. Serena took it, her fingers trembling. Inside was a single card embossed with gold ink. Breakfast, downstairs. Don't run. DM. She looked up, but the men were already gone. A chill ran down her spine. The handwriting was precise, elegant, confident, like the man himself. She closed the door slowly, her heart racing. She had escaped one cage, only to find herself in another, made of silk and shadows. Serena stood before the mirror, her reflection ghostly in the pale morning light. The robe Dante had given her hung loosely off one shoulder, the faint scent of smoke and spice clinging to the fabric. She looked like a stranger, not the terrified wife who had fled her husband's mansion, not the woman who once flinched at the sound of a closing door. This Serena had survived a night in the room of a man everyone else seemed to fear. She wasn't sure what that meant yet. The hotel was unnervingly quiet when she stepped out. Every sound, her heartbeat, the rustle of her bare feet on the carpet echoed. The elevator doors opened to the ground floor restaurant, all glass and gold, morning sunlight filtering through crystal chandeliers. And there he was. Dante Moretti sat at a corner table, alone, black coffee steaming beside a stack of neatly folded newspapers. He didn't look up right away. He was the kind of man who made the world come to him. His stillness was power deliberate, effortless. When he finally raised his gaze, Serena felt it like a touch. His eyes trailed over her, not with hunger, but with precision, as if assessing every decision she'd made that morning. "You came," he said simply. "You told me not to run," she answered, her voice steadier than she felt. A faint, approving smile ghosted across his lips. "Good, sit." She did. A waiter appeared instantly, silent and efficient. A cup of coffee, a glass of water, a plate of pastries. It was all too elegant, too calm, as if last night's storm hadn't existed. Dante folded his newspaper. "My men found your husband's car parked outside the Argus Club around midnight. He's still in the city." I atmosphere. Serena froze, her fingers tightening around the cup. "He's looking for me." "Of course he is," Dante said evenly. "Men like that don't lose easily. They think they own what they touch." "Then why help me?" she demanded, her fear sparking into something else. Frustration, defiance. "You don't even know me. You could have thrown me out and this would be over." "I could have," he agreed. "But I didn't." She waited. He leaned back, studying her as if weighing every word before he spoke. "Because your husband does business with men I don't trust. He moves money through certain channels that don't belong to him. His downfall would be convenient." The truth hit her like cold water. "So I'm useful." Dante's expression didn't change. "You're under my protection, Serena. That's not the same thing as being used." She laughed bitterly. "You're protecting me because it benefits you." He tilted his head. "Protection always benefits someone. Don't be naive." And so, for a long moment, neither spoke. The tension between them felt alive, pulsing like a wire ready to snap. Then, unexpectedly, Dante's tone softened. "Tell me," he said, "why did you stay so long?" Serena blinked. "What?" "In your marriage. With a man who breaks what he can't control." She looked down, tracing the rim of her cup. The truth was small and terrible. "Because I thought I could fix him. Because I was afraid of being nothing without him." "A lie." Dante nodded slowly, as though her answer didn't surprise him. "Fear makes good cages. Guilt locks them." She glanced up, meeting his eyes. "And what about you? What keeps you caged?" For the first time, something flickered across his face, amusement, mixed with something darker. "You assume I'm not the one building them." He rose from his chair, tossing a few bills on the table. "Finish your coffee." She frowned. "Where are we going?" "To get you new clothes. And a place safer than this hotel." "I told you I don't want." He looked down at her, and the quiet authority in his voice cut through her protest. "Serena, your husband has already asked 3 of my associates to find you. If you walk out that door alone, he will. So you can keep pretending you have choices, or you can get in my car." Her pulse raced. She hated the way his words made sense. She hated the calm certainty in his tone, the way he made her feel seen and cornered at the same time. She stood slowly. "And if I say no?" Dante smiled not kindly. "Then you'll find out what kind of man Adrian Cross becomes when he's desperate." He walked toward the exit, not looking back, knowing she would follow. Serena closed her eyes for a heartbeat. Then she exhaled, picked up her bag, and stepped after him. Outside, a black car waited by the curb, gleaming like obsidian in the sunlight. Dante opened the door for her without a word. The moment she slid inside, the door shut with a soft, final click. It sounded less like safety and more like the beginning of another kind of cage. The car's door sealed with a quiet, decisive thud. Inside, everything smelled of leather and smoke and the faint trace of his cologne, cedar, amber, something expensive and restrained. The kind of scent that stayed long after the man was gone. Serena sat stiffly in the back seat, clutching her bag in her lap. The city streamed past in fragments of light and reflection. Glass towers, wet pavement, faceless people hurrying under umbrellas. She had dreamed of escape for years, but she hadn't imagined it would look like this, trapped in silence beside the most dangerous man she'd ever met. Dante Moretti leaned back against the seat, phone in hand, giving quiet orders in Italian. His tone was calm, measured, but the language itself sounded like knives wrapped in silk. Every few sentences he glanced at her, not cruelly, but as if confirming she hadn't vanished. When he finally ended the call, he slipped the phone into his coat pocket and turned to her. "Your husband," he said, "has connections that reach further than you think. He's hired men who owe him favors, police, investigators, even a few in my world." Serena's breath hitched. "You make it sound like he's unstoppable." Dante's gaze was steady. "No one is unstoppable. Some just take longer to fall." She stared at him, unsure if he was promising vengeance or warning her of her own fate. The car turned off the main road, weaving through quieter streets until skyscrapers gave way to tree-lined avenues and iron gates. Finally, they stopped in front of a townhouse. Tall, elegant, the windows blacked out. It didn't look like a safe house. It looked like a place built to hide power, not people. Dante stepped out first. The driver, a man in a gray suit with an unreadable face, opened her door. Serena hesitated only a second before following. Inside, the air was warm and still. The entrance opened into a minimalist living room, dark marble floors, soft gray furniture, and a single painting on the wall. A storm rolling over an empty sea. "You'll stay here until I decide what to do next," Dante said, walking toward the kitchen. "Luca will bring whatever you need." "Luca?" she asked. "My right hand." He poured himself a glass of water. "You'll meet him soon." Serena crossed her arms. "You keep saying until you decide. But I don't belong to you. I can't just stay here." He turned, leaning one hand on the counter. "Then where will you go, Serena? Back to him?" The question landed like a blade. She looked away. "That's what I thought." He took a sip, then nodded toward the hallway. "There's a guest room upstairs. Use it." Serena's pulse thudded. "You can't just order me." "I can," he said simply. "Because I'm the reason your husband hasn't found you yet. Because the men he sent last night won't be returning home. I'm... Her stomach dropped. "What did you do?" Dante's expression didn't change. "I sent them a message." She didn't ask what kind. She didn't want to know. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Finally she spoke, her voice small. "Why me? Why get involved at all?" Dante set his glass down and walked closer, slow and measured. "Because you walked into my room when you should have run the other way," he said. "And because sometimes the universe throws something unexpected in your path and you don't ignore it." He stopped a few feet away, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. His gaze held hers, dark and unflinching. "You're not the first person to run from a monster. But most people don't survive long enough to knock on my door." Serena's throat tightened. "And what does that make you?" Dante's mouth curved not into a smile, but something quieter, sharper. "The man who decides what happens next." He turned and walked toward the study, the door closing softly behind him. Serena stood there for a long time, the sound of her heartbeat filling the silence. She should have been terrified, and she was, but something else pulsed beneath the fear, a strange, reluctant trust. She climbed the stairs to the guest room. Everything was too perfect. Crisp white sheets, spotless furniture, not a single item out of place. Like a stage, waiting for the next scene to begin. Through the window, she could see the faint shimmer of rain on the glass, the city lights beyond it like distant stars. For the first time since she'd run, she wasn't cold, but she wasn't free either. She whispered into the quiet room, more to herself than to anyone. "What have I done?" Downstairs, behind the closed study door, Dante sat at his desk, staring at the security feed of her standing by the window. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. But when he reached for his phone, his voice was a low murmur that carried no doubt. "Keep eyes on her," he said. "If Adrian Cross makes a move, I want to know before he does. Then he ended the call, poured another drink, and leaned back in the dark, his expression unreadable, but his mind already calculating the next move in a game neither of them had agreed to play. The storm had eased by the time Serena woke. Rain still ticked softly against the tall windows of the townhouse, a faint percussion that matched the pounding of her heart. For a long moment she lay motionless, staring at the ceiling. The sheets were warm, the room too quiet. She almost forgot where she was almost. Then the memories crept back. The hotel, the man in the shadows, the ride through sleeping streets, and the black eyes that never flinched. Dante Moretti. She sat up slowly, clutching the blanket to her chest. The guest room looked different in daylight, less menacing, almost serene. A tray of food waited on the nightstand, toast, eggs, a silver pot of coffee. Someone had thought of her needs before she even woke. That should have comforted her. Instead, it terrified her. She dressed quickly in the clothes Luca had left on the chair outside her door. Everything fit perfectly. She didn't remember giving anyone her size. When she stepped into the hall, the scent of espresso and something darker guided her downstairs. Dante stood at the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled, wristwatch gleaming under the pale light. He was reading a file. He didn't glance up until she reached the last step. "Morning," he said, voice low, measured. "You slept?" "Barely," Serena answered. He folded the file, sliding it into a drawer. Better than not at all. Her throat tightened. "You had people watching me." He didn't deny it. "I don't like surprises." "Then you're wasting your time," she snapped. "I'm not your enemy. I decide that," he said softly. The quiet authority in his tone made her spine stiffen. "You're unbelievable. You act like saving me gave you the right to own me." Dante leaned back against the counter, arms crossed. "You want honesty?" "Yes," she said bitterly. "I don't own you, Serena, but you are under my roof, and in my world that means protection and obedience come as a pair. Break one and you lose both." His calmness enraged her more than shouting would have. "And what happens when I leave?" His jaw ticked once, almost imperceptibly. "Then you'd better be certain your husband won't find you first." Her hands clenched into fists. "You're threatening me." "No," he murmured, stepping closer. "I'm stating facts. Adrian Cross is dangerous in ways you can't imagine. He'll come for you because men like him can't stand to lose control. I've seen it before. It is." Something flickered in his eyes, an old memory, sharp and painful. Serena saw it and faltered. "You've dealt with someone like him?" Dante's gaze darkened. "I've been someone like him." The admission hit her harder than she expected. He turned away before she could respond, his back to her as he poured another coffee. "You'll stay here until I tell you otherwise," he said. "Luca will handle anything you need. Don't leave the house. Don't answer unknown numbers. If you want freedom, earn it by staying alive." Serena swallowed the protest burning in her throat. She wanted to scream that she wasn't his prisoner, that she hadn't asked for this. But the truth was cruelly simple. She needed him. Adrian would never stop hunting her, and whatever else Dante was, he wasn't a liar. She nodded once, curtly. "Fine. Good." His voice softened slightly. "There's a study at the end of the hall. You'll find books, a laptop, and quiet. Try to remember what peace feels like." She turned away before he could see the tears gathering at the corners of her eyes. By evening, the townhouse had fallen into that strange half-silence again, the kind that hums with invisible movement. Somewhere downstairs, men spoke in low voices. Doors opened and closed. Rain whispered against the windows. Serena sat by the window of the study, trying to read, but her thoughts spun like leaves in a storm. Every word Dante had said replayed in her mind. Protection and obedience come as a pair. Her phone buzzed on the desk. The screen flashed with an unknown number. She froze. Then a message appeared. "You can't hide forever, Serena. A." Her stomach twisted. She turned off the phone, heart hammering, and pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the window. Across the street, under the rain-soaked lamppost, a black car idled with its lights off. Downstairs, Dante ended a call with Luca. His expression hardened as he looked at the security feed showing the same car outside. "She's been found," Luca said over the line. "I know," Dante replied quietly. "Let him watch for now." "You want to draw him out?" "No," Dante said, eyes narrowing. "I want him to understand what it means to follow her here." He hung up, poured a glass of wine, and turned toward the window. The city was still, the sky bruised and heavy. Somewhere upstairs, Serena Hale thought she was alone. Dante Moretti smiled faintly, without warmth. "Welcome to my protection, cara mia," he murmured. "Let's see if your devil can do better." The night inside Dante's townhouse felt heavier than the rain outside. The air hummed with unseen movement, footsteps in distant hallways, muted voices behind closed doors, a rhythm of a world Serena didn't understand, but was now trapped inside. She sat on the edge of the guest room bed, staring at the text from Adrian still glowing on her phone. "You can't hide forever, Serena." Her thumb hovered over the screen. She wanted to delete it, wanted to hurl the phone across the room. Instead, she switched it off and tucked it beneath the pillow, as if burying it would bury the threat. A soft knock at the door made her jump. "Come in," she said, her voice low. The door opened to reveal a man built like a soldier in a tailored suit, dark hair, dark eyes, no smile. He carried a tray with a fresh pot of tea and a stack of folded clothes. "I'm Luca DeLuca," he said, placing the tray on the table. His voice was steady, stripped of warmth. "Mr. Moretti asked me to make sure you have what you need." Serena eyed him warily. "What I need is to disappear." "Disappear?" Luca arched an eyebrow. "In this city? With your husband looking for you? You're safer here." "That's what everyone keeps saying," she muttered. Luca straightened, adjusting his cufflinks with military precision. "You don't trust us." "That's good. Trust will get you killed in our world. But you should understand something. Mr. Moretti doesn't take in strays. If you're here, it's because he's decided you're worth protecting. Don't make him regret it." Before she could answer, he turned and left, the door closing softly behind him. Downstairs, Dante stood in front of the window, watching the black car still idling under the lamppost. His reflection merged with the city's glow, a phantom in a fortress of glass and steel. "He's testing me," Dante murmured when Luca entered. Luca nodded once. "Cross sent his men to watch, not to act. They're feeling you out." "They're feeling her out," Dante corrected. He swirled the wine in his glass. "She's the pressure point. He wants to see if I'll flinch." "You never flinch," Luca said. Dante's mouth curved a smile without humor. "Let's keep it that way." Later that evening, Serena drifted into the study. She couldn't sit still in the guest room any longer. The shelves were lined with leather-bound books, many in languages she couldn't read. She trailed her fingers along the spines until she reached the window. Below, the same black car still waited. No movement, no headlights, just a presence. She pressed her palm to the glass. "He's here," she whispered. "You're not wrong." She spun around. Dante leaned against the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked less like a businessman now, more like something older, sharper. "You should lock your door," he said. "I thought you had people for that." "I do." He stepped into the room, stopping beside her. "But locks are just illusions. They keep out the polite, not the determined." Her throat tightened. "He sent that message. He's out there." "I know," Dante said softly. "I've been watching him watch you." Her eyes widened. "And you're just letting it happen?" "I'm sending a message back." He moved closer to the window, his presence filling the room like heat. "If I move first, it starts a war. If I let him watch, he thinks he's in control. But the moment he crosses my line," he let the sentence trail off, the silence heavier than words. Serena hugged herself. "You talk about control like it's a game." "It is," Dante said, "and you're already on the board." I don't want to be on the board." "Too late." He turned toward her, his eyes dark but not unkind. "What you can do is stay alive. Stay in this house. Listen to Luca. Do not answer your phone. Do not go near the windows at night. I'll handle Adrian Cross." She stared at him, searching for some crack in his calm. Why? She asked finally. Why risk this? I'm just some woman who walked into the wrong room. And, for a heartbeat, something flickered across his face. Not calculation, not strategy, but something raw. Because you looked at me, he said. Everyone else looks away. Serena's breath caught. The room felt smaller suddenly, the city outside farther away. Dante stepped back, breaking the moment. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we move you somewhere safer. Somewhere safer, she echoed. He gave her a faint, unreadable smile. With me, cara mia, there's no such thing as safe. Only safer. He turned and walked out, the door clicking shut behind him. Serena stood by the window long after he was gone, the glow of the street lamp painting her face in gold and shadow. Outside, the black car finally pulled away. But she knew, as surely as she knew her own name, that the man inside hadn't given up. He was just waiting, and so was she. Morning came in a slow wash of gray light. Serena barely slept. Every sound in the townhouse, the hum of the heater, the creak of the floorboards felt amplified, as if the house itself were holding its breath. When she finally ventured downstairs, she found Dante already dressed, a cup of coffee in one hand and a gun lying casually on the table beside him. He didn't look up right away. You shouldn't wander alone, he said. I couldn't stay in that room anymore, she replied, her voice tired but steady. It feels like a gilded box. It is. He finally looked at her, and boxes keep fragile things from breaking. She frowned. I'm not fragile. Dante's gaze lingered, unreadable. No, he said, you're something worse, you're desperate. Before she could argue, Luca entered the room, crisp as always, carrying a folded map. We've secured the other location, it's ready. Dante nodded. Good, move her within the hour. Serena's pulse spiked. Move me? To where? Dante stood, his tone calm but final. A safe house outside the city. Adrian's men won't find you there. And if I don't want to go? He took a step closer, his voice softening but his words sharp. You think you have choices, Serena. You don't, not yet. Until Cross is dealt with, you're under my protection. I never asked for your protection, she said bitterly. No, he agreed. But you came to my room. Her throat tightened. He had her cornered, again with nothing but logic. The drive out of the city was long and silent. Serena sat in the backseat of the black sedan beside Luca, watching the skyline fade into mist and forest. Dante was in the front, speaking quietly on the phone in Italian. Every word sounded like a negotiation. Who are you calling? She asked when he hung up. People who make problems disappear, he said without looking back. The bluntness of his answer chilled her. You mean kill them? His silence was answer enough. Serena turned toward the window, trying to focus on the trees blurring past. Freedom, she'd once thought, would feel like open air. But this felt like running through a maze where every path ended in someone else's shadow. When the car finally slowed, they'd reached a property tucked deep within the woods. A secluded house made of stone and glass, quiet as the grave. It wasn't large, but it was fortified cameras in the corners, steel-reinforced doors, tinted windows. This is safer? She asked quietly. For now, Dante said. No one knows it exists except me and Luca. She stepped inside. The place was beautiful, in a cold, empty way like everything in his world. The living room was open and stark, the furniture dark, modern, impersonal. A fire burned in the hearth, the only sign of warmth. Do you ever live anywhere that feels human? She murmured. Dante set his coat on the back of the couch. Human places come with attachments. Attachments get people killed. Serena looked at him, the truth of that statement settling heavy between them. You've lost people, she said quietly. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Hours passed. Luca disappeared to check the perimeter, leaving her and Dante alone. The air between them had shifted, less hostility, more tension of another kind. She sat by the window, watching rain streak down the glass. Dante worked silently at the table, reviewing documents and answering calls. Finally, she spoke. If Adrian finds this place, he won't. But if he does? Dante looked up from his papers, his tone measured. Then I'll handle him. Ithishly, you say that like killing is just a part of your day. He studied her for a long moment. In my world, it is. Serena swallowed, looking back out the window. Maybe I should go to the police. They won't protect you, he said. Half of them answered to Cross, the rest answered to men like me. You trade one cage for another. Then what am I supposed to do? Just stay here and wait for you to decide my life? Yes, he said simply. For now, the bluntness made her stand. You can't keep me like this. Dante rose too, and for a moment she thought he might shout, but he didn't. He stepped closer, his voice a low growl. Do you think I enjoy this? Do you think I want a terrified woman in my house, second-guessing every breath I take? I should have sent you away the moment you walked into that hotel room. Then why didn't you? She demanded. His jaw tightened. Because I couldn't. The admission hung in the air like a spark. Neither of them moved. The fire crackled softly behind them, the only witness to the storm building in silence. Finally, Dante turned away, rubbing a hand across his jaw. Dinner will be ready soon. Luca will bring it up. Don't leave the house. He left her standing there, shaken, heart pounding. Serena sank onto the couch, staring into the flames. She'd wanted safety, but safety had brought her face to face with something far more dangerous, not Adrian Cross's rage, but Dante Moretti's restraint. And deep down, she realized it wasn't fear that made her tremble anymore. It was something else entirely. By morning, the rain had turned to mist. The forest around the safe house was blanketed in a low fog, the kind that blurred the world into something uncertain and beautiful. Serena stood by the window with a mug of untouched coffee, staring out at the silence. It was too quiet. No traffic, no city noise, not even birds. Only the faint hum of the generator and the occasional rustle of leaves. For a few brief hours, she almost believed she was safe. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Coffee's cold, Dante said softly. She turned. He leaned against the doorframe, hair slightly damp, shirt sleeves rolled up. He looked nothing like the man from the night she met him, less like a king of shadows, more like a man caught between worlds. I didn't make it for the taste, she said, forcing a wry smile. It just gives me something to hold. His gaze lingered on her hands, the tremor she was trying to hide. You'll stop shaking eventually. I'm not shaking. You are. He walked closer, slow, deliberate. You don't have to pretend with me. Serena exhaled. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one hiding from a man who thinks he owns you. Dante's eyes darkened. Not with pity, but with something colder. No, I'm the man other men hide from. And as a coming right it explored. She looked at him sharply, searching for a flicker of irony. There was none. I'm trying to understand you, she said. You terrify people. You control everything around you. And yet, she paused, choosing her words carefully. You didn't throw me out. You didn't even ask what I could offer you. Why? He studied her face as if the question itself was a trap. You think everything has a price, doesn't it? A small, humorless smile touched his lips. You're learning. One that... He turned away, heading for the table, where a phone and a set of papers waited. Get dressed, he said. We're going out. Serena's pulse jumped. Out? You said it wasn't safe. It isn't, he interrupted, sliding a gun into a shoulder holster. But there's a meeting I can't miss, and I'm not leaving you here unguarded. Her brows knit. I'll stay with Luca. Luca's coming with me. He looked at her, his tone quiet but unarguable. You'll stay close, say nothing, and do exactly as I say. Understand? Serena hesitated, then nodded. Where are we going? He didn't answer. An hour later, she found herself in a black sedan again. The city returning in fragments through the windshield, the skyline cutting through fog, the streets humming with life. Dante sat beside her, composed as ever, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. Luca drove in silence. They stopped at a grand stone building on the edge of the financial district. It wasn't until they entered the marble lobby that Serena realized it wasn't an office. It was an exclusive private club. The kind of place where power was traded, with handshakes and smiles that never reached the eyes. Every head turned when Dante Moretti walked in. Conversations paused, glasses froze mid-air. Serena felt the tension ripple through the room, subtle but unmistakable. She wasn't sure if it was respect or fear. Probably both. A tall man in a tailored gray suit approached, all polite charm and sharp calculation. "Dante," he said, offering his hand. "I didn't expect you'd bring company." Dante didn't take the hand. "Now you know what it feels like to be surprised, Marcus." Marcus's smile faltered, just a fraction. His eyes slid to Serena, lingering too long. "Beautiful," he said smoothly. "You always did have a taste for the rare." Before she could react, Dante's hand settled on the small of her back, firm, possessive, protective, all at once. "She's not part of the conversation," he said. "Keep your eyes on me." The message landed. Marcus raised his hands in mock surrender. "Of course." Serena's heart raced. The weight of Dante's hand felt both like a shield and a claim. Every instinct told her to pull away, but she couldn't. The heat of his touch grounded her, steadied her in a room full of predators. As the meeting went on, Dante and Marcus spoke in coded language. Numbers, shipments, alliances, territory. Serena sat quietly piecing together fragments. It wasn't business, it was empire. When the discussion ended, Marcus leaned back. "There are rumors, Dante," he said, "that Adrian Cross is looking for something he lost, something precious." Dante's expression didn't change. "Let him look. He'll find the wrong things first." Marcus chuckled. "And what if he finds the right one?" His eyes flicked to Serena again. Dante's reply was quiet, but it carried across the room. "Then I'll remind him who she belongs to now." The words hit her like a spark. She turned sharply toward him, but his face was unreadable. It was a performance, it had to be. But something in his tone didn't sound like an act. When they finally left the building, the cold air felt like freedom. Serena walked ahead of him, trying to breathe through the anger burning under her skin. "You didn't have to say that," she snapped. "Say what?" "That I belong to you." Dante stopped beside the car, opening the door, but not stepping in. "You wanted to survive that room?" That's how survival sounds. The only language men like Marcus understand is possession. "You were a shield, Serena, not an ornament." She stared at him, unsure whether to thank him or curse him. "You keep saying you're protecting me, but all I feel is trapped." He leaned closer, voice low enough for only her to hear. "You are trapped, but not by me." The truth in his tone left her speechless. He stepped back, motioning for her to get in the car. "You did well today," he said. "You didn't flinch." She slid inside, her pulse still racing. "Maybe I'm learning from the best." Dante's eyes met hers in the rear-view mirror, a faint glint of surprise, maybe even approval. "Careful, cara mia," he said. "You might just survive my world after all." And for the first time, Serena wasn't sure if that was a promise or a warning. The drive back from the city was different. The trees outside looked sharper, the shadows deeper. Serena sat in the back seat beside Luca, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Dante sat in front, silent, one arm resting on the door as he watched the road. The low hum of the engine was the only sound. Every nerve in Serena's body was still vibrating from the meeting. She could still feel the weight of Marcus's stare, still hear Dante's quiet, devastating reply. "I'll remind him who she belongs to now." The words burned in her chest like a brand. When they reached the safe house, dusk had already settled. The sky was a bruised purple, clouds heavy with more rain. Luca got out first, scanning the perimeter with the practiced eye of a soldier. Dante followed, opening the door for Serena. "Inside," he said softly. She stepped out, the gravel crunching under her shoes. The air smelled of wet pine and smoke. Everything looked the same, the quiet house, the empty woods, but the air felt different, heavier, charged. Inside, the fire still burned in the hearth. Dante poured himself a drink and leaned against the mantel. You handled yourself well today, he said. I didn't do anything, Serena replied, pulling off her coat. You stayed calm, you didn't flinch. That's more than most could manage in a room like that. She turned to face him. Is that what I am to you now? A prop you can take into rooms full of men who want you dead? Dante's jaw tightened. You're alive because of me. Because I made a choice to protect you. Don't confuse survival with captivity. Feels the same, she shot back. His gaze flicked to her, dark and unblinking. It's not. Before she could argue, Luca's voice cut through from the hallway. Boss. Dante straightened instantly. What? Visitors. Serena's stomach dropped. What kind of visitors? Luca's expression was grim. Cross's men. 3 of them. They're on the road leading here. Looks like they've been following since we left the city. Dante set his glass down with a quiet clink. How far? Half a mile, Luca replied. They're stopping, watching. Serena's breath quickened. He found me, she whispered. Dante's voice was calm, but it carried an edge she hadn't heard before. He thinks he did. He turned to Luca. You know what to do. Luca nodded and disappeared into the hallway. Serena stared at Dante. What are you going to do? End this little game, he said softly. Her heart pounded. You're going to kill them. They came to my doorstep, Dante replied. They knew the risk. She took a step closer. And what about me? You think I can just stay here while you… His gaze snapped to hers, sharp enough to cut. Stay in this room, Serena. No. His voice dropped to a low growl. Stay in this room. The command in his tone froze her. It wasn't anger. It was something colder. Older, the sound of a predator making a line in the sand. He stepped past her, but she grabbed his sleeve. Dante, wait, please. He stopped, looked down at her hand, then back up at her face. For a heartbeat, something flickered in his eyes, not softness, but something close to regret. I told you, he said quietly. Locks don't keep out the determined. Then he pulled free and walked out. Minutes stretched like hours. Serena paced the room, listening to muffled movements outside, boots on gravel, the low murmur of Luca's voice, a car door shutting. Then silence. Her mind raced. She thought of Adrian's text, of Marcus's stare, of Dante's hand at her back in the club. She thought of every time she'd run from a fight. She hated herself for it. Finally, she went to the window. The forest was dark, the gravel drive empty. But she knew they were out there, waiting. The door creaked open behind her. She spun around. Luca stood there, his face shadowed. It's done, he said simply. Her knees weakened. Done? They're gone. What did you… She stopped herself. She didn't want the answer. Luca studied her for a long moment. He told you to stay in this room. You should listen to him. He left before she could reply. Later, Dante returned. His shirt was damp from the mist, his hair a little disheveled, but his eyes were as cold as ever. It's over, he said, pouring another drink. For tonight. Serena sat on the couch, hugging her knees to her chest. How can you be so calm? I'm not calm, he said, his voice low. I'm contained. He looked at her then, and for the first time she saw something under the surface, a flicker of exhaustion, of something that might be sadness. Adrian won't stop, she whispered. No, Dante agreed, but neither will I. She stared at him, her heart pounding. Why? Why risk this for me? He turned the glass in his hands, the liquid catching the firelight. Because Cross made you into a victim, he said, and I don't like the way victims look at me. What does that even mean? It means you walked into my room, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a monster. The words left her breathless. She didn't know whether to be afraid or grateful. Dante finished his drink and set the glass down. Get some sleep, he said softly. Tomorrow, we stop hiding. Serena's pulse raced. What does that mean? He didn't answer. He just looked at her for a moment longer, then turned and walked upstairs, leaving her alone with the fire and the echo of his words. Tomorrow they would stop hiding. Tomorrow, something would break. The next morning arrived gray and silent, the kind of morning that felt like the world was holding its breath. Serena barely slept. The safe house smelled faintly of smoke and rain, and though Dante's men had cleared the property, she couldn't shake the image of those headlights in the trees. When she walked into the kitchen, Dante was already there. He was wearing a black shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, a fresh cut on his jawline where he'd shaved too quickly. A laptop glowed on the counter beside him, a map of the city and lines of encrypted text. He looked up when she entered. "You're awake." "I didn't have much of a choice," she said quietly. "I kept waiting for the sound of another car." He closed the laptop. "There won't be one, not unless I allow it." "Do you really believe that?" Dante studied her face. "Yes, I love." She wanted to argue, to tell him no one controlled everything, not even him. But then she remembered the calm precision in his voice last night, the way he'd walked into danger like it was routine. Maybe he did believe it, maybe he had to. "Sit," he said. "Eat." On the table sat a plate of eggs, toast, and black coffee. Luca must have left it before disappearing again. Serena sat, too tired to fight the small kindness. For a while, neither spoke. The only sound was the clink of Dante's spoon against his cup. Finally, he broke the silence. "Cross won't stop until he finds you," he said. "You know that now." Serena nodded. "He won't stop until I'm dead, or until he owns me again." Dante's eyes flickered, dark and unreadable. "Then we take that choice away from him." She looked up. "What are you talking about?" "I mean, we go after him first." Serena stared. "You want to start a war?" Dante leaned back, his expression maddeningly calm. "He's already started it. He sent men here. He's forcing my hand." "You can't," she began, but he cut her off. "I can, I will." Serena pushed her chair back, her voice rising. "You think this is a game, but it's my life. You'll make me the reason for a bloodbath." He stood slowly, his height and stillness swallowing the room. "You think you have that kind of power over me?" She froze. "You walked into my world," he said, quieter now, but every word sharp, and the moment you did, the lines blurred. "Cross made you his property. You came to me. That makes you my problem." "I'm not your property," she whispered. His jaw tightened. "No, you're not." Something in his tone shifted, and the air between them softened just enough to hurt. "Then stop talking about me like I'm a weapon," she said. "I don't talk about you like a weapon," he replied. "I talk about you like a reason." And Serena's breath caught. "A reason for what?" "For everything that's about to happen." He turned, grabbed his phone, and dialed a number. She could hear him giving orders, short, precise, lethal, before he ended the call. When he looked at her again, the mask was back in place. "You're leaving here tonight." Her pulse jumped. "Where?" "One of my safe apartments in the city. You'll stay there until I deal with Cross." She shook her head. "No, I'm not hiding again." You don't have a choice." "I do. And I'm not running anymore." He walked toward her, each step slow, controlled, until he was close enough that she had to tilt her chin up to meet his eyes. "You don't understand what he's capable of," he said softly. "I do," she whispered. "I lived it." The silence that followed was heavier than shouting. Dante's gaze dropped briefly to her mouth, then back to her eyes. For the first time, the careful walls he built seemed to crack. "You make things complicated, Serena." "I think you were complicated long before I showed up," she said. He almost smiled. "Almost. You should pack." "I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me what you're planning." He hesitated, then said the words like a confession. "I'm going to make him come to me." Serena felt the chill run through her. "That's suicide." "No," he said, "that's strategy." "You'll get killed." Dante leaned in, his voice a low growl near her ear. "Then I'll die on my own terms, not running, not hiding, not begging." That's the difference between me and Adrian Cross. Her throat tightened. "And if he hurts you?" He looked at her then. Really looked. And something raw flickered beneath the calm. Then maybe I'll finally understand what it means to lose something worth protecting. She didn't know what to say. For once, words failed her completely. Dante stepped back, straightening his sleeves like the conversation had been nothing at all. Luca will take you to the city tonight. Be ready at 9. And if I refuse? His eyes met hers, steady and dark. Then you'll make me do something I'll regret. He walked out, leaving her alone in the kitchen with the taste of cold coffee and fear and something else she didn't want to name. That night, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Serena sat by the window in her room, watching the woods fade into black. Every time she blinked, she saw Dante's face, heard the calm certainty in his voice when he said, "I'm going to make him come to me." Part of her wanted to run before he could drag her deeper into his world. Another part, the one she didn't recognize anymore, wanted to stay. She pressed a hand against the glass and whispered to the empty forest, "Don't do this, Dante." It was nay, but she knew he already had. The clock in the hallway ticked loud enough to fill the silence. Serena sat at the edge of the bed with her packed bag beside her, listening for the sound of footsteps on the stairs. 9 o'clock was minutes away. The house felt too large, too still. When Dante said he was going to make Adrian come to him, she thought it was bravado. But the way Luca had avoided her eyes all afternoon told her otherwise. Whatever Dante was planning, it wasn't words. A car engine rumbled outside. She rose, heart hammering. The front door opened and closed softly. Dante's voice carried up the stairs. "Ready?" She came down with her bag. He waited in the foyer, black coat over his shoulders, expression unreadable. Luca stood behind him, phone in hand, tension carved into every line of his posture. "I'm not sure. I want to know what you've set in motion," Serena said quietly. "You don't," Dante replied. "But you'll be safer in the city tonight." Safer doesn't sound convincing when you say it. His lips twitched the faintest hint of a smile. "That's because I don't lie to people who matter." He opened the door for her. Cold air swept in. "Let's go." The city looked different at night. The streets glowed wet from earlier rain, neon signs bleeding into puddles. Luca drove through side roads until they reached a quiet building near the river, a luxury apartment tower that looked half empty. The elevator ride up was silent except for Serena's uneven breathing. When the doors opened, she saw a penthouse, high ceilings, dark wood floors, windows looking out over the skyline. It was too elegant to be called a hiding place. "Someone could see us here," she said. "No one's looking," Dante replied. "They're too busy watching what I want them to watch." She frowned. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. He moved to the window, looking down at the lights below. "Luca, make sure the perimeter's locked down, and tell Rinaldi to confirm the delivery." Luca gave a curt nod and stepped out. Serena turned to him. "Delivery? What delivery?" "Bait," Dante said simply. Her blood went cold. "You're using yourself." "I'm using him," Dante corrected. "Men like Adrian can't resist the illusion of victory. I've let him think he's found a weakness, and that weakness is me." Their eyes met. He didn't deny it. Serena's voice trembled. "You said you were protecting me, but you're using me as bait." "I'm protecting you by ending this," he said. "There's a difference. You can't end someone like Adrian. You said it yourself. He doesn't stop. He's one of..." Dante's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. "Neither do I." She shook her head, disbelief mixing with fear. "You'll kill each other. If that's what it takes. Then what happens to me?" He stepped closer. "Then you go back to living. Without him. Without me. You start over." "You really think I could forget this? Forget you?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "That's the point, Serena." Midnight crept closer. Luca returned, face grim. "Movement on the east side," he said. "Crosses men. 3 cars." Dante's expression didn't change. "How long?" 10 minutes. "Good." He turned to Serena. "Go to the study. Stay there until I call you." She grabbed his arm. "Dante, please, don't do this." His hand covered hers, firm, steady. "I told you once locks don't keep out the determined. Tonight, I'm the one knocking." He let her go and disappeared into the hallway with Luca. Serena sat in the study, staring at the city lights beyond the glass. Every muscle in her body was strung tight. She tried to focus on the sound of the rain starting again, on the faint hum of traffic below, but all she could hear were muffled voices and the sharp, distant click of a weapon being loaded. Then came the first crash. Glass shattered somewhere down the hall, shouts, boots thundering on marble. She flinched as a gunshot cracked through the silence. "Dante!" No one answered. She stood, heart pounding, and reached for the door handle. Before she could open it, the door burst inward. Luca stumbled inside, blood on his sleeve. "We have to go now." "What about Dante?" "He's buying us time." "No." Luca grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the service exit. Another gunshot echoed, closer this time. Serena twisted free, panic and fury mixing into something reckless. "I'm not leaving him. He told me to keep you alive." "Then you'd better help me do that," she snapped. The hallway was chaos, smoke, shouts, flashes of light. Serena caught a glimpse of Dante at the far end, moving like a shadow, precise and terrifying. Two of Adrian's men went down before they could fire. The third aimed. "Dante!" she screamed. He turned, saw her, and for one instant his control cracked. "Get her out!" he barked. But the distraction cost him. The gunmen fired. Dante dropped behind cover, but the bullet grazed his shoulder. Blood bloomed through his shirt. Serena froze. Luca shoved her through the emergency exit just as another shot rang out. They spilled into the stairwell, racing down flight after flight until her lungs burned. When they finally burst into the cold alley behind the building, Serena spun around. "We have to go back." "He's coming," Luca said, voice rough. "He'll find us." She wanted to believe him. But the city above was silent again, and every second that passed without Dante felt like falling. Rain poured harder, soaking them both. Luca pulled out his phone, barking orders in Italian. Serena leaned against the wall, shaking, blood pounding in her ears. She didn't know if Dante Moretti was alive or dead. She only knew one thing for certain. Adrian Cross had finally drawn blood, and the war Dante promised had just begun. Rain came down in relentless sheets, drumming against the narrow alley like a warning that no one heard. Serena stood there, soaked and shaking, the echoes of gunfire still ricocheting inside her chest. Her lungs burned. Her mind refused to believe what her eyes had seen: Dante bleeding, disappearing back into that storm of bullets. Luca grabbed her arm again, firm but not cruel. "We have to move," he said. "Now." "I'm not leaving without him," Serena shouted over the rain. "He ordered me to keep you alive," Luca snapped. "If you die, it's on me. Get in the car." She jerked her arm free. "You think I care about your orders?" "He could be dying up there." Luca's voice dropped, low and hard. "And if he's dying, he'd want it to mean something. Don't waste it." The words cut through her panic. For a moment, all she could hear was the sound of rain and her own ragged breathing. Then, reluctantly, she let him guide her toward the waiting car. They drove through the city's underbelly, empty streets, neon signs flickering like broken memories. Serena's hands wouldn't stop trembling. Every turn felt like a betrayal. "Where are we going?" she asked, finally. "Someplace they won't look," Luca said. "One of the old warehouses by the docks. He'll meet us there." "You sound so sure." "I've worked for Dante Moretti for 12 years, he said flatly. "If he were dead, I'd feel it." She wanted to believe him. She really did. But the image of Dante falling, the flash of blood against his black shirt, wouldn't leave her mind. They reached the docks just before dawn. The rain had slowed to a fine mist, painting everything in ghostly gray. The warehouse was huge, empty except for a few crates and the faint smell of oil and salt water. Luca parked the car inside and checked his gun. "Stay here," he said. "Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me or him." Serena nodded, but the moment he stepped out, she felt the walls close in. She couldn't sit still. She paced the concrete floor, staring out the narrow windows, waiting for headlights that didn't come. Minutes bled into hours. The sky turned from black to steel blue. She was beginning to think Luca was wrong, that Dante was gone when the sound of a car engine sliced through the morning quiet. Serena ran to the doors. Before she could open them, they swung wide. Luca stood there, soaked and grim, supporting Dante beneath one arm. "Get me a towel," Luca ordered, his voice tight. Serena froze for a heartbeat before rushing forward. Dante's face was pale, his shirt clinging wetly to his shoulder where blood had soaked through the fabric. "Oh my God," she breathed. "You're hurt." "Just a scratch," Dante muttered, but his voice was weaker than she'd ever heard it. Between the two of them, they got him to a chair. Serena found a first aid kit on one of the shelves and tore it open with shaking hands. "Hold still," she said. He gave a ghost of a smile. "You give orders now?" "Someone has to." She pressed gauze to the wound, ignoring his wince. "You lost a lot of blood. You need a hospital." "No hospitals," Dante said sharply. "They watch those." "Then what? You'll just sit here and bleed?" He looked at her, eyes steady despite the pain. "I've had worse." "That's not an answer." "Neither is panic," he murmured. She wanted to slap him and kiss him in the same breath. "You're impossible!" "And you're loud." "Is it Axberg?" Their eyes met, and for one fragile second, the world narrowed to just them, the steady rhythm of her breathing, the trembling of his hands, the faint heat of his skin under hers. Luca cleared his throat from across the room. "We should move again before sunrise. Cross's men will sweep the area." Dante nodded weakly. "Burn everything we leave behind." Serena turned to Luca. "He can't move yet." "He'll have to," Luca said. "We don't have time." "No," Serena said firmly. "You go. I'll stay with him." Luca stared at her, then at Dante, who met his gaze and gave a small nod. "Go," Dante said. "You know the route." When Luca left, the warehouse fell into uneasy silence. Serena sat beside Dante, wrapping his arm with fresh bandages. "You shouldn't have gone back," she whispered. He closed his eyes. "You shouldn't have shouted my name." She froze. "What?" "That's when he saw you," Dante said quietly. "Cross's man. That's why he fired." Guilt hit her like a blow. "So it's my fault." He opened his eyes again, dark, tired, but clear. "No, it's my choice. I could have stayed behind cover. You were trying to protect me." He didn't answer. Serena bit her lip, feeling tears sting her eyes. "You keep doing that, throwing yourself in front of bullets like it's normal." "It's how I survive," he said softly. "You protect what matters." She looked at him, the words sinking deep. "And I matter?" Dante's hand twitched slightly, brushing her wrist. "More than I should admit." The confession hit her harder than anything else that night. She wanted to say something, anything, but the sound of approaching cars outside froze the words in her throat. Headlights swept across the warehouse walls. Luca burst back in, gun drawn. "They found us," he said. Dante tried to stand, grimacing. Serena caught his arm. "You can't fight like this." "I don't have a choice," he said. Luca moved to the window. 3 vehicles. Cross's men again. They're surrounding the building. Serena's heartbeat thundered. "What do we do?" Dante's voice dropped into that calm, commanding tone again, the one that always made the world obey. "We end it," he said. "Right here." "Dante." He looked at her, eyes like a storm about to break. "You asked why I protect you," he said. "Now you'll see." He turned to Luca. "Get her to the back exit. If they breach the front, go through the dock. I'll cover you." "No," Serena said. "Not this time. I'm not leaving you again." He stepped closer, his voice low, almost tender. "You're not built for this, cara mia." "Then teach me," she whispered. For a heartbeat. He just looked at her, the terrified, furious woman who refused to run. Then, for the first time, Dante Moretti actually smiled. "Fine," he said. "Stay behind me, and if I tell you to run, you run." The sound of engines roared outside. Shadows moved across the windows. Dante cocked his gun, blood still staining his sleeve. "Let him come," he murmured. "Let Adrian Cross see what he's made me do." The first shot shattered the glass, and the war truly began. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Bullets shredded the silence, splintering wood and glass. Serena ducked behind a crate as shards rained down around her. The deafening echoes of gunfire filled the air, thick with smoke and the metallic scent of blood. Dante moved like a phantom, precise, controlled, terrifyingly calm. Even wounded, he was methodical, every shot deliberate. Luca covered his flank, barking orders in Italian over the roar of gunfire. Serena's heart slammed against her ribs. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely breathe. This was war not the kind she'd imagined in nightmares, but one that felt cold, efficient, inevitable. "Stay down!" Dante shouted. She crouched lower, clutching the pistol Luca had pressed into her palm earlier. "I can help." "No." He turned, eyes hard. "You stay alive. That's how you help." But then the back door burst open. Two men stormed in, guns raised. Luca spun, firing. One went down instantly, the other ducked and fired back. Luca's shoulder jerked as a bullet grazed him. "Dante!" Serena screamed. He pivoted, shot once. The second man dropped. The silence that followed was temporary, fragile. "Luca!" Dante barked. "Status!" "Alive," Luca grunted, pressing a hand to his wound. For now. Outside, engines revved. Tires screeched. The sound of more vehicles approaching. Serena's stomach twisted. There's more of them. Dante reloaded, movements quick, practiced. "Of course there is. Cross doesn't fight fair." "Then neither should we," she said before she could stop herself. He looked at her, not with surprise, but something like pride. "Good. Then you'll do as I say." He handed her a small device from his pocket. "When I tell you, press this." "What is it?" "Insurance." Her fingers tightened around it. "Dante, what are you planning?" Before he could answer, a voice cut through the smoke, sharp, cold, and horribly familiar. "Serena!" She froze. Adrian Cross stepped through the shattered front doors as if he owned the world. His suit was immaculate, despite the rain, his smile cruel and effortless. Around him, his men fanned out, guns ready. "Enough of this," he said, his voice carrying easily across the warehouse. "You've cost me men, Moretti. You've cost me time. But I'll admit..." His eyes landed on Serena. "You have taste." Dante stepped forward, gun raised. "One more word and I'll put a bullet through your tongue." Adrian laughed softly. "And yet here you are bleeding for a woman who was already mine." "That's the thing about people like us, Dante. We take what we want." Serena's skin crawled. "I was never yours," she said. Adrian's eyes snapped to her, the warmth vanishing. "You were everything because I made you. Without me, you're nothing." "It's sick." "Wrong," Dante said. "She's the one thing you can't buy or break." Adrian sneered. "And you think you can keep her?" "I don't have to," Dante said quietly. "I just have to make sure you don't." The tension cracked like lightning. Adrian's gun came up too fast, too smooth, but Dante was faster. He fired once. The bullet tore through Adrian's shoulder, spinning him sideways. Gunfire erupted again. Serena dove for cover, pressing the detonator as Dante had told her. A thunderous explosion ripped through the far side of the warehouse. Flames bloomed, swallowing the vehicles outside. Luca grabbed Serena's arm, pulling her behind a steel beam. "Stay low." Dante moved through the smoke like a storm made flesh, every shot precise. Adrian's men fell one by one until the echoes faded into silence. Then came a sound that made Serena's blood run cold, a slow clap. Adrian was still standing. Wounded, bleeding, but alive. His smile was that same familiar mask she used to fear. "You think you've won," he hissed. "You're just another monster who thinks love will make him clean." Dante leveled his gun, voice like gravel. "I don't need to be clean. I just need you gone." Adrian's eyes flicked to Serena and his voice softened, dangerous, coaxing. "Come with me, Serena. You don't belong in his world. He'll destroy you the way he destroys everything he touches." She stepped forward, her hands trembling. "You already did that." Adrian's expression twisted. Ungrateful. The next shot cut him off. A single brutal crack of sound. Adrian staggered, eyes wide, then fell. The echo lingered long after his body hit the floor. Serena stared, frozen. Smoke curled through the broken windows. Dante lowered the gun slowly, his breath ragged. "It's over," Luca said quietly. But it didn't feel over. Serena's legs gave out. She sank to her knees, tears and rain mixing on her cheeks. "You killed him. And think." Dante holstered the gun. He was already dead. She looked up at him, the weight of everything crashing down at once. The fear, the exhaustion, the impossible relief. What happens now? Dante looked at the flames devouring what remained of the warehouse. "Now," he said, "now we live with what's left." He turned to Luca. "Get rid of the body. No trace. We leave before sunrise." Luca nodded and disappeared into the smoke. Serena rose slowly, every muscle trembling. Dante reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face with his blood-stained fingers. "You're shaking," he murmured. "So are you," she whispered back. He smiled faintly, weary but real. "Then we're both still alive." She stepped closer, resting her forehead against his chest. For the first time, he didn't pull away. His hand came up, resting gently at the back of her neck. Outside, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds. Adrian Cross was gone. The fire had burned the past to ash. But as Serena closed her eyes and listened to Dante's heartbeat under her cheek, she couldn't help but wonder what kind of future could grow from so much ruin. Dawn seeped through the broken windows of the ruined warehouse, turning the smoke into ghostly ribbons. The gunfire had stopped hours ago, but the echoes still clung to Serena's skin, to the inside of her skull. She stood beside the open door, watching as the last flames devoured the wreckage of Adrian Cross's empire. Behind her, Dante sat slumped on a crate, a strip of cloth tied around his bleeding shoulder. Luca worked silently, cleaning his own wound. None of them spoke. The silence was heavier than the gunpowder that coated the air. When Luca finally stepped outside to make a call, Serena crossed the distance between her and Dante. "You should be lying down," she said softly. "I've had worse." His voice was rough, tired. Worse just never had your name attached to it. She knelt in front of him, pressing her hands to the blood seeping through the bandage. "Stop pretending you're made of stone. You almost died, Dante." He looked at her, eyes dark but softer than she'd ever seen. "And you didn't run." Her throat tightened. "I told you I wouldn't." "You should have." She shook her head. "You think you scare me?" "I terrify you," he said quietly. "And that's the only reason you're still breathing." Serena exhaled, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "I was terrified of Adrian, Dante, but you." She searched for the right words. "You don't scare me. You undo me." He froze. The line between them shifted, fragile, trembling. "I watched you kill a man," she continued, "and I don't even know if I should hate you for it or thank you. What does that make me?" His hand rose, hesitated, then brushed her cheek. His fingers were rough, streaked with dried blood. "It makes you honest," he said. She caught his wrist, holding it there. "You keep saying I'm safe now, that it's over, but we both know it's not." He didn't deny it. "There'll be fallout. Cross's allies won't take his death quietly. Some will come for me." "And for me," she whispered. "Yes. Then what do we do?" He studied her face for a long moment, as if memorizing her. "You go somewhere far away, somewhere my name doesn't reach. A Azendur's lie." She flinched, pulling back. "You're sending me away? I'm giving you a chance to start over." "I don't want to start over." Her voice broke, trembling with anger and something rawer. "Not without you." "Serena!" "No." She stood, tears streaking down her face. "You don't get to decide that for me. You saved me from Adrian. But that doesn't mean you get to choose what comes next." He rose too, the air between them charged with everything unsaid. "If you stay, they'll use you to get to me. I won't let that happen. And if I leave, then maybe you live long enough to hate me for this." She stared at him, disbelief and heartbreak twisting inside her. You think this is mercy? It's all I have left to give. For a long time, the only sound was the soft hiss of the dying fire. Then she whispered, I don't need your protection, Dante. I need your truth. He looked at her, his control unraveling, the edges of his voice fraying. My truth is this. I can't be what you need. I can't build anything that isn't made from violence, and if you stay, I'll destroy you the same way I destroy everything I care about. She stepped closer, so close, their breath mingled. Then destroy me, she said, but don't you dare walk away from me and call it kindness. His hand slid to the back of her neck. You don't know what you're asking for. I do, she breathed. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then the dam broke. Dante pulled her to him, his mouth crushing against hers with a desperation that felt like confession. The kiss was all heat and fear and exhaustion, the kind of kiss that burns and heals at the same time. She clung to him, tasting blood and smoke and the fragile promise of something that could never be simple. When he finally pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. You shouldn't love me, he whispered. I already do, she said. His jaw clenched, pain flashing through his eyes. Then God help you. By the time the sun climbed higher, Luca returned. It's done, he said. Cross's body's gone. No trace. Dante nodded. Good, get the car. Luca looked between them, reading the tension but saying nothing. When he was gone, Serena touched Dante's bandaged arm. Where will you go? Someplace they won't follow. You mean you're running? He gave a hollow smile. Strategic retreat. And me? You'll go with Luca. He'll take you to the coast. There's a boat waiting, a new passport, a clean name. Her eyes filled again. And if I refuse? He brushed his thumb over her lips. Then you'll die here, and I won't survive that. He turned away before she could answer, heading toward the car as if distance was the only weapon he had left. Serena followed, her heart breaking with every step. She wanted to scream, to drag him back, to tell him she didn't care about the danger, but she saw it in his eyes. The decision was already made. He wasn't sending her away to save himself. He was sending her away to save her from him. As the car door closed behind her, Serena looked out the window. Dante stood in the ruins of the warehouse, a figure cut from smoke and sunlight, the wind tugging at his coat. He didn't wave. He didn't look back. But when the car pulled away, she saw him touch his chest right where her hand had been, and she knew, even if he'd never admit it, that leaving her was the first wound he couldn't heal. The war was over. But love, that was the one battle neither of them had won. The coastline shimmered beneath the morning light, an endless stretch of blue and gold that looked nothing like the city Serena had fled, nothing like the chaos she'd survived. The car had stopped hours ago, replaced by the rhythmic hum of the boat's engine cutting across calm water. Luca stood at the helm, silent as ever, steering toward a cluster of distant islands. Serena sat near the bow, the wind tugging at her hair, the salty air stinging her eyes. The horizon was too wide, too quiet. Freedom had never felt so lonely. She looked down at the small leather envelope in her lap, the new passport, the new name, the new life. Isabel Hart. The letters blurred as tears pricked at the corners of her eyes. It was everything she had said she wanted. A clean slate. A chance to disappear. But it felt like erasure. Where are we going? She asked finally. Somewhere off the map, Luca said. You'll have a place to stay. Money. No one will find you. Does he really think I can just forget him? Luca's eyes flicked to hers, unreadable behind dark glasses. He's hoping you can. And you? I know better, he said simply. She turned back toward the horizon. The sea stretched endless and merciless, like time itself. Will he survive? He always does, Luca said. That's what makes him dangerous. She nodded, but her throat ached. She didn't want him to survive. She wanted him to live, to exist somewhere beyond violence and blood and guilt. But men like Dante Moretti didn't get to have peace. They only borrowed it between wars. Hours later, they reached a small coastal village, quiet, sunlit, unremarkable. The kind of place no one important would ever look twice at. Luca carried her bag up the narrow dock and handed her an old-fashioned key. There's a house at the end of the road, he said. He bought it years ago, said one day he might need it. She stared at the key in her palm. And he's not coming? Luca hesitated. He's already gone. He left before dawn. Serena's chest tightened, but she nodded. Thank you. 8. Take care, Serena, Luca said quietly. He won't say it, but you're the only thing he's ever regretted letting go. Before she could reply, he turned back to the boat. Within minutes, he was nothing more than a shadow on the water, leaving her alone with the sound of waves and the weight of what remained. The house was small, tucked between olive trees and cliffs that dropped to the sea. Inside, everything was simple white walls, open windows, sunlight pooling across the floor. No locks, no shadows. On the table sat a single object, a black card with gold lettering. Her breath caught when she read it. For when peace feels too quiet. Day M. She sank into the chair, the card trembling in her hand. He'd left her a choice, not a command, not a cage, just a door. She could call. She could walk away. Serena closed her eyes, breathing in the salt air. For the first time in years, no one owned her fear. Days passed, then weeks. She learned to sleep without nightmares. She learned the sound of quiet, the rhythm of waves, the whisper of wind through the trees. But at night, she would catch herself looking out toward the horizon, half expecting to see the black silhouette of a boat against the fading light. She never did. Until one evening. The sky was the color of ash and rose, the sea perfectly still. She stood by the water's edge, the black card still in her hand. She had told herself she wouldn't use it, that she'd let him stay wherever he was, that she'd live the life he wanted for her. But love, she realized, wasn't about obedience. It was about choosing even when it scared you. She took out her phone, fingers trembling, and dialed the number. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then a voice, low and familiar, rough around the edges. Serena. Her breath hitched. You knew I'd call. I hoped you wouldn't, he said, but I wanted you to have the choice. Eat, lom. I made it, she whispered. I'm tired of surviving, Dante. I want to live. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, softly, where are you? She turned toward the sea, her reflection flickering in the water like a promise. Home. Come find me. When dawn broke the next morning, the horizon was no longer empty. A sleek black boat cut across the water, slicing through the fog, heading straight for shore. Serena stood barefoot on the sand, the wind whipping her hair around her face. Dante stepped off the deck, dressed in black, the sea wind catching in his coat. He looked the same, dangerous, tired, alive. Neither spoke as he walked toward her. When he reached her, he stopped just close enough that she could feel the warmth of him. I told you, he murmured, voice low. You shouldn't love me. She smiled through her tears. Then stop giving me reasons to. For a heartbeat, he didn't move. Then he reached up, cupped her face, and kissed her, slow, deep, final, and beginning all at once. When they finally broke apart, the waves touched their feet, and the world felt impossibly quiet. Dante brushed a strand of hair from her cheek. So what now? He asked. Serena looked up at him, her voice steady. Now we stop running. He smiled, real and weary and free. And as the sun rose over the sea, Serena Hale, the woman who had once run for her life, finally stopped running. Because sometimes peace isn't given. Sometimes it's chosen. And for the first time, both of them had chosen it together.